idea of Zeh is something that has to do on Elikus. Only godliness can be called the level of Zeh, because only that is the true existence. Everything else is dependent on something else. Since it's dependent on something else, so therefore it cannot be called truly Zeh, because this isn't all it is. There is more to it. There's something other than. So then we go on to explain also, so that's the great mile of being called Zeh, because of the connection. Anything that's connected with Hashem has the level of Zeh. Then we said that the Yidden are called, also Moshe Rabbeinu is called Zeh, because Moshe Rabbeinu is about bringing out this connection of the Yidden with Hashem, and causing that unity with the Eibishter. And also we said another point about this is that it's Zu, that it's only through a total bittul and Kabbalah's oil and sublimation of self that the person can be totally bound up with Atzmus. So therefore it uses the feminine form Zu instead of Zeh when talking about Klal Yisrael, because the Zeh state that the Yidden are at a level of Zeh, because of their connection with Hashem's essence, is dependent upon their Zuness. It's dependent upon how much their bittul is, their being in the way of a nekeva, receiver, less of themselves and more about Hashem. So now he's going to continue back to the pasuk that is in this week's Haftarah. Oizba. This is what it means, that this nation I have formed for me. They will relate my praises. Pirush, this means Kol Ha'isabas Ytzarti B'Shvil Amzu, that the entire creation, the entire being, the entire existence of the world is for this nation. In other words, the simple reading of the text, Amzu Ytzarti, means this nation I have formed, this nation I have created. The way the Maimer explains it is, Amzu is Yotzarti. For the sake of Amzu, for the sake of the Yidden, that is why Yotzarti, I made the entire creation. Now, that itself is fine. So the creation of the world, of course, for the Yidden, but what are the Yidden's purpose? He says in line 22, the Amzu, ubishvil tilasi saperu. This nation is for the sake that they should relate my praises. This is similar to other Mamare Chazal, where it says explicitly that the entire world was created for the Yidden, and the Yidden were created so they should do Torah mitzvahs. So the Rebbe goes on to explain what is this Tilasi Saperu indicate, Vahainum, specifically when the avoid is no way of Amzu in the feminine form. Chewing in a Kabbalah, so it's the idea of the accepting of the yoke of heaven. Then there could be that my praises, they will relate, but in a way that corresponds to the intention of Hashem, to the supernal, the supernal idea and purpose of the creation. So he explains, why is Kabbalah's oil, the amzunis, the idea that we're saying that it's doing the feminine, ensures that the Hilasi Sapedu will be the way it's supposed to be. That's line 26. When the avoid is according to reason and understanding. So then that's like as someone that is making a circle, signal in the air in front of the king, that we've spoken about many times. The Chassidus use this analogy that if a person's in the king's presence, we had this also in the previous mimer, and he makes any type of sign in the air, so that's considered disrespecting the king with all the consequences that follows along with that. So, in other words, it doesn't have to be something directed against the king. That's the main point that the Rebbe wants to bring out. Just showing some type of independence in the presence of the king, that already is something that's disrespecting and causing a disconnect with the person and the king. The Rebbe says in the last line, behind this means Gam im tzaddik gomer, top of the next page. Even if he's a complete tzaddik, he's serving Hashem, like we mentioned earlier in the Maimer, he could be a very great tzaddik, serving the Eibishter with awe. And he's serving the Eibishter with a great love, the love of the delight, the highest level of love. Still in all, he needs to think into the fact that he's standing in the presence of the king. And therefore his service, his love and awe involves his own quote unquote ego, his self, his being. Yes, Misha, because there is someone here that loves, like we said before. It's an ego involving Kedusha, but it's still, there is an entity that's loving Hashem. So he's like, by loving Hashem, he is now proclaiming himself as an entity. Though his entire ego is represented by and expressed in the fact that he loves Hashem, Mikol Makim, still in all Ariu, yes, he's still in the state of being and having an ego and a self-identity. In Cain, if so, so therefore his service is just like the person that is making a circle of the air in front of the king, in the presence of the king. Therefore, it's not the ultimate level of doing avodah, because the person's own ego is serving as an interference and a blockage between him uniting with Hashem. Only when his avodah is in the way of accepting the yoke of heaven. Amzu, like we said before, that it's the level of this nation. In other words, this nation in the feminine form, through having Kabbalah soil, through being in a state of the feminine, that he binds up with Hashem's essence, the level of Zeh. So then, when he has that, when he's attained the Amzu state, when he's attained the feminine state, the Bittul and Kabbalah oil state, so then my praises, they will relate. He's relating the praise of the Eibishter in a way that's appropriate according to the intention of above. So now the Rebbe is going to bring out a very interesting point about it. When we're talking about this whole idea of Zeh, we've introduced that Zeh and Zu, this is all very powerful descriptions. Yet, the word that he uses, there's many different terms that can be used for Klal Yisrael. Both the name or the title, they can be called a nation, they can be called a goy, they can be called Yisrael, they can be called Yeshurim. Am, as we know also in Parshas Kisisa, it says Am is used in often a very low state. Like Am Hazeh Asher Tzeisim Mitzrayim, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu when they made the Egel, this nation that they took out of Mitzrayim, Am indicates a low level. Why, when we're talking about this high level of Zeh and Zu, are we referring to Am? He says in line 12 in Medayik, because of Am Zu, and this pasuk at the beginning of the Torah, where it says Am Zu Ytzarti, specifically uses the word Am Daik, specifically Am. Though the description Am indicates the low level, and we know so from Amar Chassidus, it speaks that Am is from the word B'cholim Oimimois, the coals that are extinguished and so on, darkened coals and so on. So he says, through the level of Kabbalah's, which is the level of Zu. Like we said before, it's the level of the acceptance of the yoke of heaven, the idea of the feminine. In a gamba b'chinas am nasa iskashrus ima atzmus shaydeize nasim chinazeh. Also, the level of am it happens and occurs the bond with Hashem's essence, that through that they come to a level of Zeh. The idea behind this is what's that interrelationship? And here we're going to come to the answer to a question we had earlier in the mind. Earlier in the mind, we asked, how do you say that all Yidden are on a level of Zeh, Amzu, when we know that even amongst the Nevi'im themselves, there's a difference. Only Moshe Rabbeinu was on a level of Zeh, that he said Nevuah in a way of Zeh Hadavar Asher Diber Hashem, because he saw things in a Spaklaria Meira luminous lens. All the other Nevi'im were in Misnabim B'Koi. So if even between Moshe Rabbeinu and all the Nevi'im, we say that the Nevi'im weren't on the level of Zeh, how do we say Amzu Ytzarti, that all the Yidden are on the level of Zeh? So this is going to fit in what we just now said about Am and the level of Zu. It says in line 16, the idea behind this is the Imi Yeshakol and Nevi'im, Nisnaba B'Koi V'Loi B'Zeh, it's though all the Nevi'im. They said Nevuah, like we said before, with the words Koi Amar Hashem. Like this Hashem said. And they didn't say Zeh. This is what Hashem said, like Moshe Rabbeinu did. In the Chiluk Zeh, this distinction, this difference between the Nevi'im and Moshe Rabbeinu, it's only when we're speaking about matters of levels. That through the levels that the different Nevi'im have, they reach different types of lights, different types of revelations. And because of that they're doing it based on their levels, even the level of the Nevi'im, that the Spirit of Hashem spoke through them, and His word is on their tongues, is only in a level of like this, because when you're dealing with madregas, this is the level that you could reach with madregas, with a person's own work and own involvement. Through the avoid of accepting the yoke of heaven. Like we said before, it's Amzu, it's the level of the feminine. Through the level of Kabbalah soil. The bond is not just with revelations of Hashem, but it comes bonded up with Hashem's very essence. It's beyond lights and revelations. In a gam bechinas am nasim b'chinazeh, top page Yudalet amzu. Even a level of am, even the lowest level, not just Navi, but the lowest level possible, because they are now bound up with Hashem, because the level of Zub, Lashon Nekeva, Kabbalah soil. Therefore, they could be on the level of Zeh, just like Moshe Rabbeinu. I knew this means in Kabbalah soil, because of the idea of Kabbalah soil, the acceptance of the yoke of heaven. So then the greatest of the great and the simplest of the simple are equal when it comes to the idea of Kabbalah soil. When we talk about love and awe, or how much he is accomplished in Torah and so on. Yes, there's differences. This person learns more Torah, this person learns less Torah, etc. This person has greater love of Hashem, this person has less. But Kabbalah soil is that ultimate bittul that connects all to Hashem's essence. Just like we said earlier, that in the avodah of Kabbalah soil, so when a person has Kabbalah soil, there's no distinction over there whether his avodah is in a way of that it's he has the most mitzvahs that he doesn't see as so crucial and so vital to schlep him out of klippus, and then there's those things that he needs to do for chamuris to drag him out of klippus. There's no distinction when we're dealing Kabbalah's oil, like we said before. So the same thing, there's no distinction between the great and the low. So therefore, even the level of Am can have the iskashas with Zeh, the same level of Moshe Rabbeinu. There's no distinctions as well. Any questions before we go to the last place of the mind? Okay. Zion, page Yudalad, line 6. He needs a medrash. It's brought down the medrash. Amra Kodesh Baruch. The Eibishter said, "Boilam haza amartem lefonai pam achas ze keli." In this world, meaning before Mashiach's times, you said before me only once the word ze, meaning one time ze, not repeated, not doubled the word ze. Where do we have this? By Kriyas Yamsuf, we said ze keli van veiv. That's also one of the psukim that we said before, shows that it's going on Hashem. Remember we said, Ze Moshe because such and such. Zeus is going on Torah, Zeus on Torah. Zu is because it says Am Zu. And then Ze, how do we know Ze is going on Hashem? Because Ze Kel. Avalos, lovely, the Medrash says, but in the future when Mashiach comes, you're going to say that thing. You're going to say Ze, you're going to say twice. Where do we see this? Shenamar, like it says in the pasuk, and they will say in that day meaning at the time of Mashiach's times, behold, this is our Elikim, and Zeh Havaya, and this is Havaya. So in other words, so we have Mashiach's times twice Zeh. So what's that mean? What does that tell us? Even the level of Zeh that was revealed by Kriyas Yamsuf, when they said by Kriyas Yamsuf, when they said that Keli Van Veyu, that Chazal say by Kriyas Yamsuf, they even a maidservant saw by the Yam what even Yecheskel, the greatest of the Nevi'im, did not see him. Still in all, despite that great revelation of Zeh, it's incomparable to the level of Zeh that will become revealed in the future times. The days of Mashiach, and when there will be the Tchias HaMesim, then they will say twice Zeh. Now, the idea behind this is, what is the two Zs? Like it's brought down the Maimon of the Rebbe Rashab, the one whose yahrzeit is on Beis Nissen. The Rebbe Rashab's yahrzeit is this upcoming Beis Nissen, this Shabbat, this Friday. The Hinel Ekenu Zeh. The first time it says that has to do with Shem Elikim. Elikenu. Elikenu, that's already a limited form, a mitzumtzumdika form. Shem Elikim is the Midas Avgur and Simtzum. So that is Zeir Ampin. That's the level of Zeir Ampin. Zeir means it's small, it's limited, it's finite. Then it says afterwards, V'zeh Havaya Kivinu Loi, and Zeh Havaya, Havaya in regards to Elikim is higher than Seder Shtalshlus. I do Atik Kaddish. That's going on the level of the holy Atik, the level that's beyond Seder Shtalshlus, beyond all limitations. So these are the two levels of Zeh that will become revealed in Mashiach. The Rebbe explains, Yeshlem Rabbi Yudbezer, we could say the explanation this is, Zeir Anpin, who Indian shall katnas with him. Zeir Anpin is the idea of being minor, constricted, literally. Zeir Anpin means small faces. A face shows up a revelation, like the face reveals what's going on inside the person, what's his emotions, and so on. Zeir Anpin means it's in a minor manner. The Oifen Kazem, Wagili the Bechinazek, Fishu Aksha Boilam Has. That is the Zeh, the way it's revealed now in this world. Behind all this, what we spoke about, Amzu Ytzarti, Zeh Keli Van Veyu, all these Zehs that we are privy to up till Mashiach's times, is only the way Zeh manifests itself through the constriction of Zeir Ampin. Line 23, that revelation of Zeh, the way it is now, before Mashiach's times, is only in comprehension. It's only and not in a sense of sight with our physical eyes. That is why it's only Zeh of Zeir Ampik. That's why it's only one time Zeh. Therefore, also by the splitting of the sea, they said Zeh Keli, but also Shifan, the maidservant saw what even Yecheskel didn't see. It says that the sea was split into 12 paths, 12 cuts in the sea, corresponding to the 12 Shvat. What's the significance? You remember before we said the true idea of connecting with Hashem's essence is that there's no distinction between, like we said, the Gadol Shabaktoilim and the Katan Shabaktanim. All of them, not like by Nevuah that we said that Moshe Rabbeinu had the Nevuah of Zeh, and all the other Levim were Nisnabel B'chai. No. Here we're saying that there is no distinction between them. And yet, there's still distinction. There's still the 12 Shvatim. I know Shalachol Shevet, and every Shevet, upper last page does above, was his own path. Now, seemingly, that time was a great unity. And the Rebbe is going to say, we're going to challenge this. Why do we say that there was 12 paths? Top of the next page, even though it says, then Moshe the Bnei Yisrael sang and recited praises to the Eibishter. Now, the reason why it says Moshe u'Bnei Yisrael, it says it with a vav that joins. So, in other words, it indicates, as it's brought down different places, that they were on similar level. Kol Makom still in all. Looking b'neim, there were distinctions between Moshe Rabbeinu and the Yidden, and amongst the Yidden themselves, there was a 12 Shvatim and so on. I know the reason for that is because at this present time, in this world, before Mashiach comes, the revelation is only in what we can comprehend, in what we can perceive. But it's not with our physical senses. The revelations of Hashem during the time of Kriyas Yamsuf did not involve the physical senses. It wasn't with the vision of the eye, and with the hearing of the ear, the scent in the nostrils, with dibur shebapeh, and speech of the mouth. These are the physical senses. As opposed to when Mashiach comes, will be the revelation of the level of Zem. Not just in the name Elokim, that Elokim is the idea of constriction. That's why it says, the first Zeh is a Zeh that has to do with being constricted. It's also on the level of Shem Havaya, Zeh Havaya. What does Havaya indicate? Havaya, first of all, is Shehu Haya Haya Kecha. Havaya indicates that it's everything is as one. It's beyond time, past, present, and future. It's all as one. That shows that's higher than Seder Shtalshus. Well, the Mailam Hazayin, even higher than this, because Havaya Shem Ben Kudus. It's a level of Yud Kei Vav Kei that has no even vowel signs under it. It's beyond the idea of vowel signs. The idea of vowel signs show on the form that the speech takes. It's a limitation. It's a certain constriction. It's a certain message. As we know, when we change the Kri versus the Ksiv, we change the pronunciation. You can change the pronunciation of a word. It can become a totally different word, a totally different meaning. So when we have Havaya with vowel signs, that shows that there is a certain type of format and certain type of level of revelation that Havaya is going to. But when you have Havaya without Nekudus, without any vowel signs, So then that shows that it's completely beyond any constrictions. And that's the level of the Za'avaya that's going to be when Mashiach comes. Za'avaya Kevinala. Line 11, this revelation will be what our senses will not just be in our comprehension and something that we perceive with our mind, but it will be perceived with our physical senses. Every person will point out with his physical finger and he will say, this is Havai. And the Zeh of the Havai is the Arich V'Zeh the Atik. It's going on the Zeh of Arich Anpin, that's going on the level of Atik Yoimin, the two levels of Keser. All this will be in the future time, speedily in our days. Shatia Gols Mitzrayim Begashmis. There will be the redemption of Mitzrayim in the physical, meaning obviously not Mitzrayim, but the Geula in the physical sense will be a physical Geula in this world. The Meila Tia Gols Mitzrayim Beruchnis. Therefore, since there will be a physical Geula in this world, there will be automatically a spiritual or exiting from Gols. What's the spiritual exiting from Gols? It's known that the descent of the neshama to the body, who in Gols Mitzrayim Beruchnis, is a spiritual exile in Mitzrayim. And when Mashiach comes, since there will be a complete revelation in godliness, the physical body will not conceal godliness anymore, so that it will be a revelation, it will be a redemption from the spiritual Mitzrayim that goes along with the redemption from the physical Mitzrayim, physical goals from Hera and Menu speedily in our days, that Mashiach Tzidkenu through Mashiach Tzidkenu, V'yikuim Ha'yud will be fulfilled. The promise, Ro Kol Basar Yachtav, all flesh will see together. Again, the emphasis, like the Rebbe always says, Ro Kol Basar, the actual flesh will see it. So in other words, it's not like Rasa Shivchalayam that we said it was like an intellectual side, it was a comprehension and so on. But the Chiddush of Mashiach's times will be, it'll be physically with our bodily senses, with our physical body. But at the mouth of Hashem spoke. Okay, any questions?
Is this the same level as before the golden calf? Or higher?
The Mashiach's times, it's going to be higher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the